I'm Nick Snow, watching Government for Oil and Gas Journal in Washington, D.C. The U.S. Bureau of Land Management takes an average 227 days to process an application to drill for oil and gas on onshore federal land it oversees. States take nowhere near as long when it comes to acreage they control, congressional Republicans have noted for years. That's one reason why U.S. Senator James M. Inhofe of Oklahoma and Representative Diane Black of Tennessee introduced identical bills which would let states take charge of onshore federal oil and gas leasing if they were so inclined. Drilling permit delays aren't the only reason for their bills. While we have seen an energy revolution in the United States the past year, this is in spite of the president's policies that are intended to stifle the development of our domestic resources, Inhofe said as he introduced S490 on February 13th. One of the leading ways he can control our energy resources is by dictating what can take place on federal land across states. States, not the federal government, are, quote, best equipped to tend to the extensive unused and protected lands across the nation that the federal government has staked a claim to, end quote, he continued. Currently, about 60% of federal land is off limits to energy production. Black said, as she introduced H.R. 866 a day earlier, that Americans are enjoying a reprieve from sky-high gasoline prices, which she said have become a hallmark of President Barack Obama's time in office. But the fact remains this administration lacks a common-sense strategy to create more energy at home and to ensure that affordable fuel costs are here to stay, she declared. Neither bill would deprive the federal government of oil and gas revenue, their sponsors said. Each would empower states to establish programs to lease, permit, and regulate the development of all energy resources on federal lands, including renewables. Once the state declared that such a program had been established, it would receive the right to develop energy resources on federal lands within its borders. Ownership of the resources and their royalty structure would not be affected. States would continue to receive half the royalties from energy produced from federal land inside their borders. No Democrats have embraced the idea as of March 22nd. The 21 co-sponsors of Black's bill and 8 co-sponsors of Inhofe's are all Republicans. Questions almost certainly would be raised about holding BLM accountable for its multiple use mission if Congress reassigns managing a significant part of that to states which show an interest. The idea stands a greater chance of being discussed in the 114th Congress than it did when Inhofe initially proposed it during the 113th, especially since BLM issued its long-anticipated final rule for hydraulic fracturing on onshore public and tribal lands on March 20th. The prospect of Inhofe and Black's bills actually becoming law, however, still looks unlikely. That's Watching Government for this week. In Washington, I'm Nick Snow for Oil and Gas Journal.